This is thanks everybody for coming. This is Carol Foot from LifePath. Gonna talk about people aging in the community and how we can make sure people fit in well.
Thank you, Nate.
Thank you so much, Carol. Take it away.
Thanks so much. Yes, as Nate said, I'm Carol Foot from LifePath. I'm the age-friendly project manager as of a number of months ago. So what we'll do first is kind of run through what that program looks like being run out of LifePath. And then we will talk a little more broadly about, sort of this idea of reframing aging and what that kind of looks like. And as I said to the audience earlier, this first part, I'm pretty good. I'm feeling pretty solid. The second part, we're going to go through it together the first time. So I welcome any conversation, questions, comments that you have, because I do find that I learn and I think a little differently when you jog my brain in the ways that you do. So please feel free to put your thoughts in the mix. So what we're looking at here, the first slide, age-friendly Franklin County and North Quabbin. We're going to be looking at the motivations, the activity, and the future of this project. And I'm hoping I'm going to advance this appropriately. So where did this initiative begin? And why is it important now in the North Quabbin region and Franklin County? So the movement, the age-friendly movement started about 20 years ago by the World Health Organization. It's now administered in the United States by AARP. And generally, this movement targets long-term policy and systems level change. However, much of the beginning change are small, local level changes that we can start seeing movement on, even though I think the goal is long-term policy and systems changes. The dementia-friendly movement started separately, but is now included in this age-friendly work and is run in Massachusetts by the Massachusetts Councils on Aging, but there are also plenty of other resources that have to do with perhaps the Alzheimer's Association in the different local chapters. There's a New Hampshire and Massachusetts one that you may be familiar with that is most closely linked to our area. Also in this project, LifePath is partnered with the Franklin Regional Council of Governments. And we are also supported through the Massachusetts Healthy Aging Collaborative, if you know the name James Guccione et al., or Antron Watson through AARP. So we've got lots of support for this age-friendly community. So the demographic context for this initiative is that by 2030, 34% of Franklin County will be age 65 or older. And around the same time, there'll be more people over 65 than under 18 for the first time in history, which may not be the first time in history, but in recent history. The North Quabbin area gets pulled mostly into Worcester County in these illustrations as we're looking at age and how we are growing older faster. So it makes it a little bit more difficult for us to pinpoint the North Quabbin region. But the fact is that the whole of Massachusetts is aging more quickly than ever. Linked here are profiles of the different towns that answered the survey that we conducted from the North Quabbin area. So there were five towns: Athol, Orange, Petersham, Phillipston, and Royalston. They were the towns that were included in the survey that we conducted. And what am I telling you here? Hold on just a moment. I have to get my thoughts in order. When this project started 5 years ago locally, one of the reasons why it started was because we had taken a look at this 2018 Tufts Health Foundation report. And so if you're interested in what these looked like 5 years ago, 2018, I'm putting those in the chat for each of those towns. So you have access to that. And you can look up any town under that Mass Healthy Aging Collaborative.org in Massachusetts and see what the town looked like as far as the Tufts Health Plan Foundation. And that was one of the reasons why we started moving forward with, understanding how quickly we're aging, what that means, what we can do about it, what things, what projects we can put together to address that. And we'll also just mention, as we did before, that integrating dementia-friendly work is part of this whole age-friendly initiative. Okay. AARP has set up these 8 domains of livability, which direct us to kind of think about things we should be addressing to make any place of living more livable. And as you can see, there are these built environments, there are social environments. So we have housing, outdoor spaces and buildings, transportation. We also have communication and information, civic participation and employment, respect and social inclusion, health services and community supports, and social participation. Within each of those 8 domains, there is value. There are projects to be had. There are things to be done to create a more livable space. So not every town or region is going to choose every single one of those 8 domains, but there may be a couple of them that make sense in their own homes and communities to make changes so that they become more livable, become a better place for people to age. So those are given as guidelines from AARP. So as far as the local project goes, where did the funding come from and what has happened so far? So now you've got a little bit of the lay of the land. We do have other age-friendly neighbors out there in the state of Massachusetts. Please note, Massachusetts was the 2nd state in the nation to join the age-friendly network. I believe the first state was New York State. And then within Massachusetts, there are now over 100 communities across the Commonwealth that have received age-friendly designation. So the area that we are focusing on is LifePath's service area, and that's an area of 30 towns. And there are 25 towns of those 30 that have raised their hand to say, hey, AARP, we want to be recognized as age-friendly. And so we think that's pretty darn good that 25 out of our 30 towns in our service area are now recognized by AARP in being age-friendly. There were 2 towns that had hopped on board before this 30-town initiative went forward. That was Deerfield and Sunderland. And then more recently, the other 23 have secured that designation. So the AARP age-friendly process, step 1 is that application and acceptance into the network, which I just mentioned 25 of the towns have done. Step 2 is develop an action plan, which usually takes place over 1 or 2 years. We are here, in case there's any question, we're there. And then step 3 is to implement and evaluate the action plan, another 3 to 5 years. And then step 4 is commitment to continuous cycle of improvements, year 5 and beyond. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about how we are in step 2, or where we are in step 2. But part of that is that LifePath and the FRCOG, or Franklin Regional Council of Governments, had established a steering committee. And there were about 10 people or so on that steering committee, a mix of professionals, interested residents. They've guided this project through that enrollment process of the towns and have helped us to pull together a regional survey to understand what the needs are locally. And I wanted to share with you who exactly are on this committee and who have helped. So you can see we have our steering committee there on the, I think it's on your left. And then we have some staff members from the Franklin Regional Council of Governments who have also been very helpful and very much part of this initiative. And then we've had some helpers from the University of Massachusetts and Amherst community that have helped with that survey that we conducted. So as you can see, we do have a couple of people from the North Quabbin area on the steering committee, and that was intentional to make sure that we were reaching the different areas of that service area. Okay, so when we were awarded the funding came through the Massachusetts Community Health and Healthy Aging Funds, and those have been administered by Health Resources in Action. And so we already said those 30 towns, we tried to get them on board. We got 25 on board. We then conducted the survey. And then from the survey, work groups have been and are right now analyzing those responses that have come from the survey respondents in order for us to understand what are those problem statements that are coming through the survey so that those can be turned into priorities for the region as we're talking about making this a more age-friendly area. These are those towns, though, with the blue stars are the ones that are recognized as age-friendly. Probably should have backed that slide up a little bit, but it looks impressive with all the blue stars. I love them. So that survey that we that ran last January through March, so a year ago, January through March, it was modeled on an AARP sample survey. It was tailored to our region. It included 34 questions. It was distributed widely electronically. So it was, emailed mostly to people, but paper copies were distributed through Council on Aging, libraries. They were mailed on request. They were dropped off at different places. They were, I already said mailed on request. And that response window was open from January 2022 through March 2022. The initial goal was that we receive 1,000 surveys from the area, when in fact, this community responded and we received almost 2,000 surveys from the community. So just about double what we had hoped for. So that was really great. On November 1st, we hosted an unveiling of slides that spoke to sort of what we found in that survey initially. I do have a recording that I will link in there for your at your leisure of that November 1st showing. And then these were the slides that were shared on that day as well. And then we also have the full spreadsheet of responses to share that. If you would like to go over that at your leisure, you may do that too. We are here to just share this information, put it to work however we can, let people use it in the ways that are most useful to them. Because the point is, we don't want to just collect this information and hide it. We want to collect the information and put it out there for people to use and put it in the best interest of people who responded, the people who live here, and those who can make changes with it. Okay. So,
Carol?
yes.
Carl Bittenbender.
Yes,
Just a
Carl.
question. I am looking at all this. Is this kind of information stuff that went to the Orange Council on Aging?
So we have made a presentation in Orange and in Athol to the select boards with the basic information, but also gave them the fuller information so that they have it they've had it both ways, the slimmer version and then the bigger version to look at their leisure.
So it did not go to the Council on Aging.
Oh, it's a good question, because Kathy Savoy, who is she Ethel or Orange?
It's gotta be Ethel.
Yeah,
Ethel.
she's Ethel.
Okay, so she definitely has access to this information. And Tracy came to our health equity training, and I believe she had access to it too. We did not
Okay,
present
cool.
to the COA.
Okay.
Tracy would be the orange one, yeah.
Yeah, Tracy would be the one that'd be concerned to know it. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, she definitely came to the health equity training, which was part of this whole initiative. And, you know, she had some great input during that day of training as well. So it is getting into the hands little by little, for sure. And it is a lot to go through once you have it in your hand. So just, you know, wanting to put that note on there. Okay, so more specifically about the North Quabbin voice in this survey. So the towns from which the survey received responses were from Athol, Orange, Peterson, Phillipston, and Royalston. And those bodies translated into 16% of the total respondents to the survey. The majority of respondents were 60 to 69 years old. The majority live with a spouse, own their own home, and have lived in the same town for 15 years or more. The top reason respondents may consider making a change to their living situation has to do with the cost of maintaining their own home. And the top 3 ways North Quabbin respondents receive information about services and programs for elders are: 1, through their COA that came out on top; 2, internet and social media; and 3, the newspaper. I don't know if that surprises any of you.
I'm kind of surprised anybody reads the newspaper anymore.
It was one of the top 3 that we saw. If a town had a newsletter, that was always the top one that came through, like the thread. It was like, oh, yay, we have a town newsletter. People are reading it. We love it. But this was specifically about elder services. You know, where do you get your information about programs and services for elders? So the newsletters tended to have, you know, a lot of that information in them. Okay, other things that came through from the North Quabbin respondents regarding affordable housing. The majority responded that access is poor, unavailable, or they don't know about what might be available to them in affordable housing. Respondents see public buildings as accessible, but that for pedestrians, well-lit and accessible streets are poor. There is better approval for traffic signs and visual cues for pedestrian crossings. And the vast majority always feel safe in their home and community, though those who responded, they sometimes or often feel safe, make up about 20% of the North Quabbin respondents. So you can see 80% of people who responded from the North Quabbin are feeling always safe in their home, but there is that 20% who are saying, I may not always feel safe in my home or community. And that's not just specific to North Quabbin. That is something that we saw throughout the region. And then the majority of respondents drive themselves, and having others drive them is the next most popular response to how they get around and, you know, do their shopping or, you know, get to appointments and that kind of thing. This might be the last slide on the survey specific. Regarding a volunteer neighbor-to-neighbor initiative, most respondents didn't know if this type of organization exists in their community, but many indicated they'd be interested in either receiving services or helping out providing those services. The North Quabbin gets good marks for conveniently located health and social services and feel they have a variety of healthcare providers available to them. Using telehealth has been well received, and most will continue to use it following the pandemic. The majority of respondents interact with people who don't live with them multiple times a week or more, but there is a subset that answered they don't ever interact with someone, or it's less than 1 or 2 times a month. When answering whether they feel supported, the majority answered often, so they often feel supported, which is great, or they sometimes feel supported. But about 15% answered rarely or never. So they rarely feel supported or they never feel supported, was about 15%. Similarly, when asked if they have someone they can call on day or night, about 17% said they aren't sure, or they do not have someone that they can call on day or night. So that is one of those concerning things. Again, it was not specific to North Quabbin. We did see this across the region, that there is a subset of people, older adults, who, you know, just know they don't have someone to call or feel that they don't have someone to call. And so is that, you know, how could that maybe be addressed so that they feel like they could call a neighbor, they could call 911, they could call, you know, I mean, 911 wasn't really in that mix, but they can always call 911. But, you know, just to know that there are people who don't feel like they have someone out there to call. Okay, so we ran through some survey information very quickly. But so with the survey information sitting there, work groups have now been going through that survey information. It has been divided into 4 different subsets or themes, I should say. There's transportation, housing, healthcare and community supports, and then communication and civic and social engagement. So those were the 4. They had 6 sessions set aside to really sort of pick through these questions that fall within their categories and really pick out the things that were coming through most clearly. So they're on their 6th session next week. So that would be their final session. And they have this grid work to put their, you know, the themes and then what those ideas were, and then that final statement. And then from there, the members of the steering committee will be taking those problem statements and creating regional priorities with those problem statements. So maybe a couple of them will work together, maybe all of them will work together. We're not exactly sure what those are going to look like yet. But by the middle or end of May, we should have those regional priorities for the age-friendly project that have come straight out of that survey that we conducted a year ago. Okay, the future. So we're not exactly sure how then those priorities may be picked up. So it may be that there'll be a few towns that will be in together. There will be a volunteer body that will be in together. There will be councils on aging that come together in a subgroup. There will be something we can't even imagine yet that will come together to try and make something happen in the region. But we also know there are towns that are already thinking about and making plans toward and making things happen as far as what they need in their own towns. As one example, Northfield has just announced, because we're always looking for news about age-friendly projects. And maybe you've heard about this, that Northfield has started a program called Here, Northfield. And essentially what Northfield has done is taken some of their ARPA funding and created 3 rooms in their town that people with hearing issues can better participate in their meetings or other things that are happening in town, that is facilitated by the technology in these 3 rooms that they're having outfitted. And it's all in an effort to help anyone of any age who has trouble hearing hear better and better participate in their town. So that's, one of the things that is happening as a result of age-friendly things moving forward. I wanted to bring up a couple more items just because I thought they were sort of on the easier side. And I want to say that it's in Buckland and Shelburne, that they're having sort of a wellness visit by the police to homes that, there's some question or someone could use a check-in or someone has requested something like that for them. So really just putting a little more effort toward that elder population.
Does Carol, does Triad still do that? My mother lived in Whately, and she used to get visits from Triad.
I know Triad is definitely still around, and they still certainly do medical equipment. I'm not sure about the visits. I would need to look into that, but I will. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So I guess all that to say, we're kind of in a place where it's a little less organized as far as what happens next. How do we use this information? What might people want to do with it? How might people organize around it? And it's a little bit of a wait and see, although we would, encourage anyone who's connected to their town, anyone who wants to do, lead some kind of project. This could be that project. And just to give a couple of examples of practical age and dementia friendly projects, there's the neighbor support for small repairs through a village to village networks or the senior center. We've seen it happen a couple of different ways, one through those village to village organizations, but also it's a one day that volunteers have been collected to fix lamps or fix a clock or do that kind of work bee kind of day. Just ensuring that people know the existing resources of the transportation system, or if there's some questions that could be asked of the, do you guys have FRTA and another service? Do you have 2 services in the North?
I believe Mart,
Mart.
out of Gardner,
Yeah.
they cover.
Yeah, someone was talking to me about how, one of them has to pass through one of the towns that they're in, but they won't pick them up because it's not in, it just seems so unkind what this person was describing to me, but that it was the reality of how the transportation was working in, the North Quabbin somehow. So I was sorry for that person that they had to kind of have this headache of, these 2 different transportation systems, but is there someone who can ask some questions and, is there any way to pull something together, or is that no way in heck going to happen? I think this is one of those initiatives that allows us to ask some more questions to make something work better that isn't maybe working as good as it could. Installing benches along popular walking routes in the town. Maybe that's a low cost something that would have a much bigger reward that a town or a volunteer organization or something would be able to say, yes, we could do that for you. Providing first responders with special training to better serve older adults living with dementia or other age-specific issues. The Alzheimer's Association will often give free trainings for first responders and others. It's just, sort of knowing when they're happening and being available when they are offered to take advantage of those. So specifically include older adults in community-wide events held in accessible venues. You know, if you had the choice between holding something in a town hall that has 2 flights of stairs up, or you know, a ground floor location, you know, choosing the ground floor location so that, you know, anyone with any kind of accessible needs would be able to attend and enjoy that gathering. Ensure that online town board meetings always have closed captioned, or always closed captioned, sorry, and that you have adequate microphones and audio boosters for in-person public meetings. Use town newsletter to share information on age-specific resources and supports. You know, maybe establish a buddy system in the schools to encourage that intergenerational interaction and appreciation. Those are just some examples of age-friendly things that are low or no cost, probably take some people power, but they are things to maybe start with if, you know, you were in a position to be at a school in the town, you know, that kind of thing, to think about things a little differently. And this was, you know, I did give the example of here, Northfield, but before we had more local examples, there were these exercise parks and job fairs for 50-year-old residents and older. There was, you know, a housing fair, and then a designation for these businesses in Brookline that they were age friendly. And honestly, I don't know exactly what that means, but they had to go through some kind of certification to say, you know, how I put my information out there, or where I am, or, you know, those kinds of things, certify them as being age friendly. And we could get some kind of checklist like that if anyone was interested in that kind of project. So my partner at the Franklin Regional Council of Governments, Meg Ryan, who is a public health nurse, she also volunteers for the Alzheimer's Association, and she is always willing to give trainings on any one of these and other topics. So the 10 signs of dementia, dementia in your community, healthy living for brain and body. And she's always, you know, very happy to come and talk on those topics. So if you ever had a group that you wanted her to come and speak to, she is a great resource for sharing that kind of training, and is just a phone call away. And I think that her information is on the last slide with mine when we get there. So I'm now switching gears into that reframing aging training, which I said, we're gonna do this together. Okay, so we went through like what I know and what we've done, and, you know, all of that exciting information locally. And I know it sounds a little bit like a jumble, but there's a lot going on. It is exciting. It does have some momentum. And, you know, for us to look at this reframing aging and ageism is a great foundation for us to look at now as we kind of slow this down. Slow down, Carol. And consider, what does it mean to reframe aging? And here are some terms to consider as we move into this part of the presentation. So ageism is prejudice or discrimination on the grounds of a person's age. And I think normally we think of this as discrimination of an older person, the thought that they can't do certain things. And so that's, you know, a little bit about what we're here to talk about. And then you have some terms that we are familiar with that older people are sometimes referred to. And it doesn't necessarily mean in a mean way, but they are terms that we've grown up with, that our parents have used, that our friends have used, that, you know, just people in the community have used. And so they're part of our vernacular. And just because some terms are part of our vernacular does not mean that we have to use them. And so I would just have you take a moment to read those and internalize them as, you know, maybe that would be a word lower on the list that you'd want to choose. You know, as you talk about older adults. So what do we know about aging in the last 30 years? There was an article from Psychology Today, why older adults are getting younger by the day. Well, that sounds pretty good. And it is good. We are living longer and healthier lives. And some of what is contributing to that is we have healthier and better nutrition and hygiene. We have had major improvements in healthcare. We have better accessibility to education. We have improved working lives over our life. And we have increased physical activity, which all benefit, you know, us as we age. So this Reframing Aging initiative was launched in 2014 by 8 national aging organizations, collectively known as the Leaders of Aging Organizations, LAO. That's pretty straightforward. This initiative aims to address negative views of aging, promote more accurate perceptions of aging, and develop supportive aging policies. I'm sorry, my son is playing the piano right now downstairs. Between 2014 and 2019, research was conducted by the Frameworks Institute on public perception of aging and the development of strategies and tools to reduce implicit bias against older adults. And implicit bias is not the bias where we say, I feel this way, I'm not going to change. It is, I don't know that I feel this way. This is just how I fall into this. This is my bias because I have fallen into it. Since 2019, it says sustain the initiative's momentum by engaging professionals in the field and providing training and technical assistance to organizations to counter pervasive ageism. So over those 5 years, there was research being done. And then after that 5 years of research, they were trying this, Frameworks Institute was trying to sustain the momentum by engaging professionals to really kind of plug in and say, this is how it should be. We should really be trying to change this outlook. We should be trying to change the perception here, because it is harmful to look at older people as frail, as, you know, unable to do much, don't have much of value, which we know is so not true. And so trying to make the changes to say older people are of value. We do care about what happens to them. They are vital to what we do on a daily basis and in our community. That was where this Frameworks Institute research was going and leading us. So Framework Institute research found that the public's perception of aging is decidedly negative and antithetical to how most older people feel and what experts in the field know to be true. Understanding how Americans think and talk about aging and how they respond to different messages can help us reshape our conversations and advance our work. I don't know if anyone in this group is brave enough to want to share some of those misperceptions or misconceptions about aging that you have come across. Yes, Carl.
One would think that I might have had quite a bit of experience, and I'm trying to figure out why I haven't. And I think it's because I'm just an ornery bulldog.
Okay, it's
You know,
working for you.
I am. I do have to remind people from time to time that this brain doesn't work like it used to, because some people do expect it to, but others don't expect it to.
But I think what we would want to keep them away from is not the expectation that it doesn't work, the expectation that it does work and there is plenty of value still in there. And even if it takes you a little bit longer to get that out of there, that is still of value, Carl.
There's an awful lot of information, and it's just the filing system doesn't work anymore.
That's right.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
Carl definitely has a lot to offer. And I
I'm
would say maybe a difference with you, Carl, is that you're so well connected still. You're still a mover and a shaker.
Yeah, I do tend to be the electric mosquito.
Sounds like you're still a model, Carl, which is exactly
Yeah.
what this is saying.
Yeah, yeah.
Just take it and run with it, right?
I should probably keep my yap shut right now. Yeah.
You can open it again, at any time. It's okay. So anyway, the Frameworks Institute is talking about, the identified misperceptions and thinking patterns. There's one example is the ideal of aging versus real aging. What does that even mean? We probably all have ideas in our head. There's the us versus them mentality, the thought of individualism. I don't even really know what that means, honestly. There's a lack of solutions because we don't want to think hard enough or, sort of pay attention close enough to how we can create solutions, and threat of modernity.
Well, I would comment on that, the threat of modernity, in that technology is moving so fast. It is just incredibly difficult to keep up. I just caught a little thing in the paper the other day or wherever it was, I don't know. But AI is discharging patients from hospitals faster than doctors can realize.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and is that good or is that bad?
Because the AI things that they're using at the insurance agencies are discharging people from the hospitals before they're ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
And it's yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll see more and more of that. And that's why it's important to have initiatives like yours and like NQCA to keep the social change. That's not my phrase, that's a phrase of somebody that's much smarter. But
Well, I think it's keeping the human in the human service, right? I mean,
yeah.
it's that piece that you cannot really substitute.
Yeah, and I would just say I've heard the individualism phrase before, and I bet they're referring to the fact that people act like everybody should be independent and take care of themselves, when in reality, like, we all rely on others to survive,
Mhm.
and we're all in like a web together. But a lot of people like don't realize it, and particularly in American society, we're, we're seen as like independence is the best,
Mhm.
so
And
that
interdependence is weakness, maybe, but not really.
yeah, right.
Nate, I appreciate you bringing that forward. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
So there's, the slide had a lot to think about and a lot more brought forward. Thank you, Nate. Thank you, Carl, than I could bring forward. I told you we were doing this together. Um, so, I guess kind of just to wrap up why this reframing helps, I'm going to say older adults in this case. One, misperceptions have documented negative impacts. There's fatalism about change, less opportunities for employment, and studies have linked experiencing ageism with decline in physical and mental health.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge. Two, a growing body of research documenting benefits of older people thinking and talking positively about aging includes longer lifespans, improved health, and reduced likelihood of dementia. So we don't talk about people in negative ways. They respond to that and have a positive response. Positive response. Three, there's a huge gap between public belief and expert understanding. We're all aging. We're all in this together. There's that web, Nate. Aging is normal. Context matters. Is it a positive context? Is it a negative context? It matters. And public policy can make a difference. And I wanted to make sure to mention that LifePath has a legislative committee and does keep its eye on what's happening in the legislature as far as things that we want to back. And we are getting better at this all the time. But we also know we have such wonderful legislators here in our part of the state that do listen, are accessible, and really can help us to make a difference. Certainly when
Carol, is this a place to throw in something that I think is extremely significant and missing?
okay, throw it at me.
And I'm only aware of it because I am not quite 2 years a widow. And what I'm after is that, as I think of all the people who have been involved in much of this stuff, widows are not a great quantity of that group. But the thing about a widow is they are just totally different from everybody else in the group. And it's as a widow, I'm beginning to understand that unless you're a widow, you don't understand it. I refer to it as being totally unexpected, what it's going to be like, totally unexpected, and totally unexplainable. The only people in my bereavement groups, the only people that really understand us are us. Communicating this agony and disruption to people who aren't in that mix is just, so far, I find impossible. And but I'm not concerned to change that right now, but what I am trying to get out is that's a major effect in not understanding seniors.
Mhm.
Now, it's also a not understanding other younger widows, but when it comes to seniors, they're really, as widows, not understood.
Mm.
And I have to reflect on the fact that I've got a lot of background in pastoral counseling,
Mhm.
general counseling, in community development, et cetera. It goes on and on and on. Nate will tell you that all the time. But the thing is, I never knew what was going on with the widows and widowers till I was one.
Mhm.
And I have not been able to find a bridge. And I don't, all the psychologists I've read, et cetera, the ones who get it are widows. And the psychologists who aren't don't get it.
Mhm.
It's something, it's something within the confines of the person. And I just want to kind of get them on the board to be looked at. That's, yeah. I'm sorry.
On the board,
I'm a
Carl.
little wound up. Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. I'm sorry for your loss. And I am glad that this made you bring a population forward, because I think that that is what this age-friendly stuff is all about. Those people we don't think about on the day-to-day, or letting us think about them differently. You hit it on the head, Carl. So thank you.
Yeah, no, that was very good, Carl. If I could kind of piggyback off that,
Mhm.
thanks for your bravery, Carl. Because now I'm gonna try and be brave. That's what's one of the things I was thinking with the survey results. Like it said, most of the people that returned the survey were they they lived with a spouse
Mhm.
or lived with someone, and that's related to what Carl's saying. But also the people with disabilities that we often find advocates for, particularly elders, are often like living alone, or
Mhm.
they're living with a paid caregiver. They're not living with a family member. So
Mhm.
therefore they don't have connections. They don't have like a driver to take them places, things of this nature.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's probably just the nature of the beast that those people, weren't together enough to fill out the survey. But it's another group of people that may have been unintentionally kind of missed.
Yep. Yep. I think that's true. I think, the work groups that were going through the questions, they actually had a lot of questions about the questions, which was really interesting to watch and hear and understand that they were very concerned for, well, how did this person answer it? What was their mindset? Why did they answer it this way? And we don't have that information, but the fact that those considering the answers were so concerned for what that person was bringing to the question. There's a lot more in those questions and in those answers than we could ever, identify. And I
Yeah.
appreciate, Nate, that you're identifying that as well. That we've missed that, or people who don't appear in the sample, we've missed them too.
Yeah, most of the people who answered your survey are all kids.
No, they had to be over 50.
I'm 20 years older than any of them,
Oh, wait, you said because the 60 to 69?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. Okay, I got you now.
they're all
Sorry.
kids.
Well, there were some in the older groups and a couple in the younger group too.
I know.
They're across the spectrum. I know we're having a good time now.
It's a great thing though, because you know, I'm sure it'll produce good results, and it starts more conversation.
Exactly. And
Like
if it
we're
just
having
gets us
now.
moving in one direction or three directions, you know, it in a direction we weren't moving in before, we'll take it, you know?
Carol,
Yeah.
Carol, please reaffirm your concern that the people who were looking at the responses had about, okay, that's the response. What was going on that caused that response?
They,
What's behind that caused that response? That's really critical to keep that out front. Thank you for bringing that up.
yeah. And we may never know, but the fact that there is something that goes deeper, there is more to it. There is what, you know, there is a person behind that. There are 1,000 people behind that. I mean, I think it's just one of those mind-blowing things that we're trying to make some sense of, you know.
One of the groups that I was thinking of was ones that get Meals on Wheels, that I know it'd be very difficult to do it if they had people that were delivering the meals were able to have sat down with people and go through this survey
Yeah.
and get it done, help them get it done. That's a big population that may not have been responding either.
That's true. You know what, Pam, I'm going to ask about that because I feel like there may have been some of that that might have happened. You know, like you said, they're right under our fingertips. We should have been able to to capture some of that population, but I'm going to ask to see if that actually happened.
If I could make a note there. So I had a friend who used to deliver Meals on Wheels,
Mhm.
and there were one or two people that he used to try to help out with like little things.
Yeah.
And the people who were running the Meals on Wheels specifically told him that he was not supposed to do anything
Wow.
but deliver those meals.
Mhm.
And if like somebody didn't answer the door, he was not supposed to try to figure out why that person didn't answer the door.
I mean, he is supposed to report back if the person did not answer, you know.
Right. But
yeah.
You get my point. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes the bureaucracy is really blocks.
Gets in the way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I know that there are people who do bring, you know, they see somebody needs something and they will bring it into their home. I'm not advocating because I work at like that. But I know it does happen because people need things and they have connections, they have relationships with the people that they deliver meals to. And
Yeah.
it really is such a beautiful thing. You know, if anyone is looking for the most lovely volunteer opportunity, go deliver some meals because it's food, it's love, it's care, it's a home, it's people, it's just so lovely. And I feel bad, Marianne, that your friend has found that barrier.
And I think one of the reasons that I heard about one of these stories was because the person had actually passed away. And it had been at least a couple of days.
Oh, wow.
You know, and it really upset him.
I'm sure he's got a relationship with this person.
Right.
Yeah. I'm sorry. So on that note, we're reframing aging. We are just about done here. I don't know that we're over time now. It's 8:05. I'm sorry to have taken more time today. But
Oh,
this,
that's okay. I think we started a little late.
okay. I think just to go over, those priority framing strategies, and this is where I feel like these slides get a little into the weeds. Because really what this is about is being part of the equity, not part of the bias. And when I say that, do you understand that you want to be part of the positive force, not the negative force of how older adults feel in their communities? So if we are inviting them and welcoming them and calling them older adults and you know, encouraging their participation, encouraging, you know, engagement with the different organizations and the different bodies that exist in our communities to really let them feel their value. That is the side of this that we want to be on. If there is redefining of aging itself in our community needed, if there is some social context or social policy or influence that we need to be shaking up and making some changes around, is there awareness that needs to be elevated that ageism does exist, and what can we do about that? Are there policies? Are there practices? You know, I think it can come down to all of these very specific things. But if you as a person goes out into the world, is engaging, is welcoming, addresses people in, you know, the most respectful ways, that's the first and third step toward reframing aging. Does that make sense?
Carol,
Yes.
Carol, to what degree is this project informed at all by the general cultural process in Japan and its unbelievable respect for the aged?
Not at all at this time, but give me a resource.
Oh boy, sorry.
You know, right now it is a lot of the AARP is our guide on this. But that doesn't mean that we can't take cues from other wonderful examples. And I'm going to Japan next week. Can I pick up some literature while I'm there, Carl?
Yes.
Wow, that's
one of the
amazing.
things- One of the things to do while in Japan is listen,
Yes,
and their respect for seniors will
come through.
rise.
Love it. Yes. Well, and if you have more to share with me, Carl, on that, I could stay on with you. But I do I do want to copy all of these resources into that chat for all of you. I'm sorry I went a little haywire toward the end here, but I appreciate the engagement, your commentary, your participation today, and meeting you all. This was a lovely, what is today, Wednesday? Wednesday, 7 o'clock hour to spend with all of you. And I very much appreciate being able to be with you. And I hope that you do take us up on, you know, being able to be in touch with me about anything that you have thoughts, resources, ideas, questions. And there it is in the chat. I'm putting it in right now so that you have it. And you can find me on LifePath's website too. So
Thank you very much, Carol.
Yeah, thank you.
thank you all. This was great fun for me. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for
you.
the great important work you're doing.
It's been wonderful these last few months that I've gotten into the age-friendly stuff and being in the community and sharing this information and only moving forward into being more age-friendly. It feels really good. So thank you all. Yes.
I have a question on how do I get this information somewhere, because once we leave this information, the chat's gonna be gone. I just
Yes.
tried to copy and paste it, but that didn't work.
Pam, do you feel comfortable giving me your email, or how do you want to do
Why
that?
why don't you just send this stuff to Jessica, Carol, and then
Okay.
we can send it to everyone.
Is that good?
You can
That's fine.
also, if you want to save information in the chat, if you look at the bottom of the chat box, there's a 3 dots and it says more when you hover over it. If you click on it, it says save chat and it'll save it to your computer. And it should open up a file window.
Okay,
Okay.
But I'm happy to share this with Jessica and then disseminate from there. Or
Okay.
if you want to be in touch with me, you know, if you copy the cfoot@lifepathma.org and send me an email, I could send you directly, you know, the presentation as well.
okay. Mostly I was just looking, because I mean, these resources and stuff, that I can't read them, just too small on my computer.
Okay.
Anyways, but I just was trying to copy it somewhere here, but
Yes. Or Pam, if you want to just tell me what your email address is, I can send you it right now.
that's okay. Jessica can get it to me. That's fine. That's no
Great.
biggie.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Be
Thank
you.
well.
Thank you all
Have a
for
good
coming.
night.
Again soon.
Have a good night.
Thanks,
Bye.
Janet.
You're welcome. Thanks for inviting me.
Bye.